Hey there folks, it's me, TheTacticalBrit, your home of breakdowns, guides and everything in between, and we're finally here with the Battlefield 4.6 update, which was promised towards the end of the month. It's something that has finally arrived, but we've certainly seen a very changed version of what was originally promised in the roadmap. We're seeing some things delayed, we're seeing some features not make it in this one, and it's quite disappointing. I think it's a bit of a shame, but at the same time we do have some new content here, and I think what this mostly represents is just the fact that Battlefield is still very much struggling with the live service model, and more importantly is kind of struggling with the whole sort of deadlines of the live service model. Again, I can't exactly tell you why that is the case. I just think this new live service model, for whatever reason, has become quite a challenge and a task for the DICE studio at the time. Now, that's not to diminish this patch in itself. Now, while SUNDAN probably should have released a long time ago, it is finally here. It's a great conquest map. I'm not too sure about the whole breakthrough side of things, but we'll talk about that later. But ultimately, what I have noticed as well is that there has been a number of changes in this patch. There's been some serious progress on fixing some things, making things better, and doing their best to ultimately improve stuff. I do spare a thought sometimes to the community managers, the likes of Jeff Braddock and Bart Welsh, Adam Freeman, just purely because communication clearly hasn't been an issue on their side. They're very obviously being told very last minute what has made into the patch, what hasn't, and I think it's quite clear to see just from the sort of semi-communication blackout that happened prior to this. I think there was a lot of discussions as to when things could be announced, why things were being delayed, what wording they were using, the usual kind of bureaucracy that comes with anything like this, but they do a stellar job. And I think, you know, it's quite difficult in the situation they're in to announce so many issues and delays and at the same time keep the community on side. But ultimately, you know, they've just got to keep hammering at it until we get towards the Pacific Theater launch. So let's talk about what's coming and what has been delayed. Well, for starters, we have SUNDAN on Conquest and Breakthrough. Unfortunately, Operation Underground has been postponed to October. Now, we don't know how far into October it's been postponed into, but based on the fact that a lot of the game data is already in the files, including things like mini-maps and overlays, I think it's safe to say that the delay won't be particularly long this time. You know, it's no secret that I actually played this map many months ago. We all spoke about on social media, and even then that map felt like it was in a pretty good place then, and now it was just, you know, occasional polish and stuff like that. So ultimately I'm not really too concerned about that. I don't think it'll be delayed very long, maybe like a couple of weeks if that, but we'll have to wait and see on the whole. Anybody who was looking forward towards Firestorm improvements, that has been delayed. I'm really sad to see that Firestorm has almost seemingly in a way been neglected. If you just look around at other Royales and how successful they are, and you know how regularly they update their games with different things and stay on the ball with stuff, it almost feels as though Criterion Games really had this one ripped away from them. The new feature sets have been delayed, we don't know how long for exactly, and it's really just a case of wait and see. So if you are an avid Firestorm fan, you're just really going to have to wait for a while. Alongside that, Private Games has been delayed and is now coming in Chapter 5, which is the same as the Pacific Theater. I'm okay with that. You know, as much as Private Games is very important and something that matters quite a lot, clearly, it's just one of those things where if it wasn't ready, there was no point forcing it out early if it didn't have a feature set that people agreed with. And I truly believe that delaying it into the kind of coordinates of the Pacific Theater will actually kind of work for DICE at the moment. Having that release at the same time as the Pacific Theater is certainly going to add a whole new layer of fun to the Pacific Theater, because it means people can mess around with stuff, provided the right feature set is there. And the reason this has been delayed is purely because they want added features to be in it, which is what I presume the case is. Other than that, we're seeing Battlefest come into play. I don't really know what the plan is with this, but it appears that Tides of War is actually taking a chapter out, so to speak. It's waiting until Chapter 5. I think that's purely just because I think the developers want to add more to what Tides of War actually is around the Pacific launch. And I think Battlefest is a very intelligent way of doing that, because people are no longer focused on Tides of War, but now Battlefest, which is something a little bit different, something to muck around with. And then we're going to find out more about that soon, but if it's anything like the older Battlefests, we should see some interesting rotations, some challenges, some double XP, and some things like that. You know, they're pretty good at being well-rounded with everything in between, so to speak. speak. So Battlefest could be a very interesting thing. But mostly I'm really looking forward to Operation Underground. Some of the new weapons, we've seen the Fliegerfaust has been added, and also just the Pacific Theater, which we're not really all that far away from now, considering we're more or less at October as it presently stands in the end of September. And on paper, the patch is pretty good. They've made lots of changes and lots of fixes. But this is kind of the sticking point. Now, I point towards this tweet by Hads or Hadokins. For those of you who don't know, he's a UK streamer over here. And I saw this tweet and I was like, I feel this on so many levels. I can't quite put my finger on it, but just there's something about Battlefield that feels off. It just doesn't feel very fluid. It doesn't feel snappy. It doesn't feel strong. And I really can't say why. There's no one thing that I can point to and say it's this or the netcode or Y or Z. I just really don't know. Even my frame rates seem to be relatively okay. The best way I could describe it was that I'm playing on a 165 Hz monitor, but it didn't feel like I was playing on a 165 Hz monitor. It felt like I was kind of slow and sluggish. And, you know, I have some theories as to why that might be. Maybe there is a performance problem in the game, but I think the more likely component of it is that I spent so much time playing Modern Warfare on PC with a really solid frame rate and a relatively decent performance. They did have lots of network issues, but never something that I personally felt massively impacted by. There were some times, but it wasn't too huge. And really, I think all of that kind of points towards me is just that the game just feels kind of sluggish and slow at the moment. I don't really know why. It's why the gameplay in this video isn't that great. I actually just didn't really enjoy playing. As much as I like SUNDAN, as much as I think SUNDAN is a really good map, at least on Conquest, on Breakthrough, the first two zones are very questionable to say the least, because the first zone is basically a hill versus a hill with a bridge in between, and the second zone is, here are all of these guys on one hill, best of luck, you're on the lower ground. But other than that, like, it's a pretty solid map. It's something I like. It's a very much vehicular-based map, so to speak. But there's, I don't know, there's just something not there for me right now. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just some of the other issues that creep in. Maybe it's the Rainbow Six Siege effect. I kind of feel the same way back when I played Siege. Now, the best way to describe this for you was that Siege never really had a game-breaking problem, so to speak, back in the day, but it just had so many minor issues that it just got super frustrating and annoying to play at any given point. To the point where it kind of got sort of tasteless to play it, and that's kind of how I feel now with Battlefield. You know, this isn't something I like. I went back, I thought maybe it was just me, maybe I was being weird, but I went back and played Battlefield 4 for a bit, and I was like, yeah, actually, you know, Battlefield still is my jam. I just really feel as though, I don't know, maybe just going from Modern Warfare to this is a jump in a different direction that I don't really like, or maybe it's a jump in terms of performance and sort of how the game handles that I didn't really like, but there was just something about it that just didn't feel too good to me. That's not to say that this patch is bad, that's not to say that there's something clinically wrong with the game. The game does still have its issues, but the patch clearly shows that they're working on a lot of that. It really just was that something didn't feel right, and truth be told, I think maybe it was because I played SUNDAN before, and I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't really a fresh experience for me, and I really do hope that every performance issue possible is ironed out, so when the Pacific comes out, I can sit there and go, this is the shit, I'm never playing anything else for a while. That's my hope. But ultimately, I'm just not really sure. It was kind of a struggle to get this gameplay, just because I genuinely wasn't having a lot of fun. I think it's just because I've played so many other polished games recently that going back to Battlefield kind of feels like a step backwards, and it's really hard to tell what it is, but ultimately, whatever the case, however it is, whatever it was that was bothering me, I'm glad to see that at least a few other people on Twitter certainly felt the same way, and let me know if you have too. Anyway, lads, that's it from me today at TacticalBrit. Let me know what your thoughts and comments are on this video in the comment section below. Let's see if we can smash, let's say 200-300 likes this time. As always, folks, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon in another video.